Hey there. I am going to start the show. Chris, did you get my invite, sir? Hi there. Okay, everybody. Happy Tuesday. We're here for another Tuesday. Thank you for joining us if you're here. We have an awesome. There's Chris. Hey, Chris. Hey. How are you?
Testing. 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me? Testing.
Oh, yes, I can hear you, my friend. You got a beautiful voice. How was your week?
Mate, we're running around from pillar to post like you cannot believe. Just to give you a little bit of background, I'm sure it's the same in the South, with everyone heeding the call with regards to being protective of the virus, against the virus, rather. Measures have been stepped up to ensure no one gets sick. And as a result, I'm consistently in and out of the house. There's sporting events happening, some social events happening. And guess who just came onto the show? Alex. There she is.
Hi, Alex. Yay.
Hey, Alex, come up on stage, darling.
If
Okay,
you're just
perfect. I
joining
didn't know,
us,
I didn't know how this worked.
but that's okay. Neither do
Join the
we.
club. I'm still.
Add me in. How do I get on? I'm there, I think.
You're fine. We're going to get you to video mode. You'll get an invite and you'll pop right up.
But,
Chris,
ladies
All
and
go
right.
ahead and
gentlemen, while
introduce the
that's
show,
busy
will ya?
underway, there she is. Oh, the Mademoiselle from Toronto. Ladies and gentlemen,
So
please allow me
I
to introduce you to Alexandra Talbot. She hails from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, involved in local government, but plus also runs a charity on the side known as Sober Active Canada. Alex, I'll give you the talking stick in a second. This is the second podcast you did with me. Well, third in principle. Daniela, I have to tell you this: when having a cuppa, my podcast was still in its infancy. Alex was my fourth or fifth guest, and we did this
Oh,
2-3 hour fantastic show. But then I forgot to press the record button, so we had to
no.
redo. So we had to do the entire the
it, it,
entire
Oh,
it
show
that's
was
all
a
over
dry
awful.
again.
run. It was a dry run. That's okay.
That's okay. You got
I'm
to be
sh-
good friends, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely no. I don't believe I would be anywhere without Alex's insight. Love, tell us your story, like you told it unto me yonks ago. You hail from a rather diverse family, and that caused you some confusion, which ultimately led you to start using drugs and alcohol, right?
Yes. Yeah. So obviously, so first of all, I just want to apologize to everybody. I might not make any logical sense. I am hit hard by COVID. I tested
Oh,
positive yesterday. I've been bedridden. So it took me everything to like make myself look half decent for this.
Well,
thank
you
you
got it
so much for
right.
still. See, that's what sober people do. They still show up, but COVID is a darn good excuse not to show up. But thank you for joining us. We don't have to make it very long, and I'm so sorry to hear that you're positive. That's rough.
It's
I
okay.
really.
It was inevitable. My daughter had it for the past week. She's now completely negative, but obviously, the
Thank
virus is
God.
lingering in my place. It was inevitable that I was going to get it, and I think we're all
Hmm.
going to get it at some point.
Yeah.
It's serving as a really good reminder though of how I never want to fucking feel again.
Yes.
Because I'll tell you what, it feels exactly like my last high and my last drunk, unbeknownst to me, on April 22nd, 2017.
Wow.
Like the tossing and turning, the hot sweats, the cold sweats, the body and muscle aches. I'm like, yep, this is how I never want to feel again in my life.
Ah, mon Dieu.
Wow.
So so yeah. So
So,
it's
mon
it's
cher,
it's
tell
a
us your
good reminder of
story.
that. But yeah, so I guess going back, since you want me to go all the way back, obviously the further along I get in my recovery today, I'll be 5 years in April. But the farther I get along, obviously, the drugs and alcohol were never the problem. They have become the solution to my every problem, right? Further along I get, recovery for me is definitely a transformative process. It's about uncovering, discovering, and recovering myself on a daily basis. So, identifying those precursors and, going and digging deep within myself and finding those underlying issues and those, traumatic events in my life and those events in my life that would have led me to where I am today, definitely. So one of them, so my dad was an alcoholic and an addict. God bless his soul. He couldn't find this better way of living for himself or for his family. So I do have deep-rooted daddy abandonment issues from a very young age, which then led me to my, obviously, I'm not only addicted to alcohol and drugs, it's definitely sex, emotional addiction, love addiction, codependency issues, you name it. I do
remember you
everything.
telling me
I do
that.
everything with intensity. But that's definitely, where that's definitely where that's rooted from, and trying to
Sure.
find that love and seeking that affection and that male figure in my life, obviously in all the wrong
Yeah.
places, So I started using and boozing at a very young age, at the age of 10. Definitely to fit in, I'm also of mixed origin. So my dad was Black and my mother is French Canadian. So for me, an identity crisis from a very, very young age, not white enough for the white, not Black enough for the Black, even in my own maternal on my mom's side, even my own maternal grandfather, was he didn't even go to my mom and dad's wedding, mind you. We weren't born yet, but my sister was his first grandchild, so that's when he finally opened up to my father. And but
That's
still hearing the racial slurs and everything, like he loved his granddaughters, yes he did, but that didn't negate the fact, his beliefs and his views and how he grew up, very, very, very French Canadian construction worker, so so that didn't. But then later on in life, as I started dating Black men, the Black girls, like I was too light skinned, oh she's not a sister, so finding that. So I always say, addiction doesn't discriminate, but neither do
No,
the
it
people
doesn't.
that you're drugging and drinking with. So I found that entourage very early on in life, right? Like all we all had in common was the fact that we drug and drank together. We didn't care what color we were, what shape, size, form, what side of the tracks we
Ain't
were
that the
from.
truth?
Amen to that.
So neither did the people I was drugging and drinking with. They couldn't give two shits less, so I was accepted and like seeking that external validation and that belonging and that fitting in and that appartenance, right? So I definitely found my crowd at a very, very young age, and both of my parents are artists. So my mom was a professional ballerina and a model, and my dad
You never told me that.
yeah, so my dad was a trained Shakespearean actor. So very, very, very
Wow.
liberal upbringing,
Gee
not a
whiz,
lot
Al.
not a lot of discipline. And then my mom, obviously, God bless her, my angel today. I took complete advantage of her, like just looking back on it now, and when I go back to the drugs and alcohol were never the problem. Like I was an addict and an alcoholic long before I was an addict and an alcoholic, and long, long before I was admittedly an addict and an alcoholic, because it took me 28 years to come to that realization and make that admonition to self, that which was so huge. But that lying, that stealing, that cheating, that manipulation, my mom would work 3 jobs 7 days a week to provide for me, and all I did was take advantage of her kindness. I remember, I'd have to be at the, I'd pretend I was going to the school dance. I'd be stealing money from her wallet. I remember I always that need for instant gratification and having something right away. Right. my running shoes, like, but no, I need them today, because in 2 weeks time when you get paid, like, but Alexandra, can we wait till my next pay? I'm kind of, stuck right now. Can we wait, and I'll buy you the running shoes in 2 weeks? And I would literally sit there and cry for hours on end until she caved and brought me to the store to get them right away. So I was a little
relate.
master manipulator from a young age.
Are you an only child?
No, I have an older sister, so that too plays into, some of my, I was very jealous of her. She was always the prettier one, the more popular one. I hung out with her and her friends, so I always hung out with an older crowd. And
it's funny how that works, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I thought I was just cute. Look at Alex, the little 10-year-old. Look at her take her first drag off of a cigarette. Look at her take her first toke off of a joint. Oh, look how cute she is. She just had oh my God, I remember we'd always see my mom drinking sake, but heating it up. So we put shots in the microwave. Holy shit, man. Were we so never drank sake again in my life. But my mom, one of her jobs was a flight attendant, so she was rarely home, and she was working around the clock, busting her ass, to provide for us, and doing the best she could do. Because today she often asks, what could I have done differently? What could I? You did everything you were supposed to do, because look at the woman that I am today, like, unfortunately, it took me that long to be the daughter that you raised, and the woman that you raised. But yeah, so, and then I just go back to, and, I almost lost her when I was 12 years old. Like, back then, she had breast cancer and, like, was undergoing chemo and radiation at the same time, and I still refused to, like, I still treated her. So it's funny, because she always says, I'm the only white woman with 2 black daughters and I'm a slave. And that's exactly how I treated her. She was a slave, and I still, as I'm almost losing her, taking full advantage of her. Her generosity, her kindness, her unconditional love, but then that goes back to, like, my behavioral patterns and my defects of character were deeply ingrained with me, probably from the day I was fucking born. So yeah, so like, so I definitely was an addict and an alcoholic long before the substances came into the mix. So that's a bit about my childhood, and then I always say that, having started to use and booze at the young age of 10, like, I can't even tell you where along that line, and in the big book we talk about that invisible line, that fine freaking line, but where along that line it went from recreational use. And don't get me wrong, it was fucking fun at first, when it was
as it was for all of us.
And I was having the time of my life and a freaking party, and and my teenage years were pretty good. But where along that line it became daily habitual abuse, and it went there quickly. I was actively using and in the throes of active addiction in mid teenage life. It had become, when we say in our recovery circles, today I always, what is that, like, some, like,
it's a sound effect. You want to hear it again? Here it comes.
So yeah, so I always go back to it, and in our recovery circles, how we say, we find ourselves in recovery, but how could you find something you never lost? It had become my very identity by the end. Because I started to use so young. Like, that's all I knew. We only know what we know.
Right.
Absolutely.
My daily norm.
You hit it right out of the park, babe.
Yeah. It had become my daily norm. It had become so regularized. It was absolutely normal. And then as I'm high, no pun intended, functioning, I'm actually academically successful. I'm professionally successful. So all the success is also going to my head, right? And when we say that disease of perception that we have, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what kept me in denial for so long, because I was up here. There was no fucking way that I was like anybody else, you know, and I was the shit. Honestly, like my ego, and I don't say I was egotistical. I was an egomaniac. I was a raging lunatic because I had such professional success and making the high dollar figures like at such a young age. You know, I graduated university at the age of 20. I got my federal public service career. I got my indeterminacy right off the bat. And I didn't go in entry level, you know. I was a manager by the age of 22.
Oh
My
my.
employees
It's
were older
amazing.
than me, you know, and so all the success, you know, and just wanting to climb up the ranks and be the shit. And I was the shit, you know, and I definitely was for a while.
Yeah.
And like these people were investing money in me, developed, like, you know, I wanted to be the youngest executive in the government of Canada. I wanted to be the youngest deputy minister. I was kind of like a whiz kid in a way, but, you know, by day, I was Alex professionally and very well. And by night, it was a completely different story, you know. And when I go into my sex addiction and love and emotional addiction, you know, and codependency issues, like as I, you know, I always think back to it today, like, holy shit, there was always a higher power with me that whole time, because to be here to live to tell the tale, the compromising situations I put myself in, my promiscuity, it was just a debaucherous lifestyle by night, you know. And at some point, those two worlds collided. There was no more hiding it. As much as I thought I was hiding it, there was no more, you know. And it just became one world, you know. I couldn't even separate the two anymore. I couldn't even keep up with my lies. I couldn't keep up with anything, you know. And those poor decisions I was making on the home front were now starting to be made at work, you know. And yeah, so as much as I lived a dual life for so long, that dual life became one at some point. And, you know, I thought I was invincible. I really did think I was invincible, and I thought I could carry it on. But guess what? You get older, you know, I couldn't keep up with my shit anymore. Go, getting, you know, getting ready at 6 a.m. without sleeping you know, I could do that in my 20s, but like in my 30s, that shit was starting to get a little tough, you know.
Yeah.
And then
Don't remind me. I'm turning 30 this year. I'm already
Oh,
dreading it.
I'll be
oh my
50
gosh,
soon.
dude, I just
What? No. You're being 20 with 30 years experience. Let's not have this argument. There's no
That's
such
right.
thing as 50. You stop aging at 21 and the rest of your life is experience. I said
That's
that to
right.
Alex and we never spoke about it again.
I
But
Alex,
just turned
anyways,
what was the
43.
it's so crazy because I can relate with you so much. You and I mean, I everything you said is the way that I tell my story and feel it. Like it's an amazing thing where someone else tells you their story and you can just relate to everything that they say.
Mhm.
What happened? What was the point where you actually got sober? Because no one ever plans that. It's just something that happens.
No.
So what happened?
So, well, first of all, like in all of that debaucherous life, you know, at the age of 28, I met somebody,
Mm,
and, you know, again, as soon as you'd show me that little extra bit of attention, you know, it was supposed to be just one of my other gazillion one night stands, honestly.
right.
But, you know, he came back to my place the next day, remembered my name. So, hey, you know, it was love at fucking first sight, everyone.
Party time.
ended up you know, getting pregnant, and I had an abortion at the age of 16. So for me it was a miracle child, because how between the age of 16 and 28 had I not gotten pregnant again, right? It's not like any of those guys were protected sex,
Yeah.
like honestly.
right.
And so I was like, okay, I'm financially well off. I'm emotionally and mentally capable of doing this. I have a great role model. I have a great
Inverted commas.
I have a great role model as a single mother, you know. So whether you want to be a part of this child's life or not, you know, I'm still going to go ahead and have the child. So that was my first foray into sobriety, except it was forced sobriety. Nobody thought I could do it. But for 9 months, you know, I didn't have a rail of Coke. I didn't have a swig of whiskey. I didn't even have a sip of wine. I didn't even so much as have a drag of a cigarette. Like, as soon as I found out I was pregnant, that was it.
Wow.
You know, except it was, you know, and it's the only pregnancy I've ever been through with somebody. I could tell you it was the hardest 9 months of my life. You know, trying to defend myself and turning blue in my face. And, you know, he came with his, it's funny because I always say, you know, I used to always say back then, oh God, these guys have such emotional, like, baggage and emotional issues, and they're so emotionally, like, unstable, except, you know, like, coming back to it today, like, I was just as emotionally unstable and as unfit as they were. But you know, he came with his own baggage of issues. Anyways, it was a 3-year relationship, too long, and a very tumultuous custody battle thereafter. But again, remember my level of success that always went to my head. You know, I got painted out to be an alcoholic and an addict in court. I still won exclusive custody because I always looked fucking amazing on paper. I was the sole provider financially.
Right.
I was the, you know, and I could have very well had my daughter taken away from me at that time. And you know, even the judge at the end, he was just like, us parents, like, you guys need to wake the fuck up. Like, honestly, you know.
Did he say it in so many words?
He didn't say it in that many words. But, you know, you get the gist. You get the gist. But, you know,
I'm teasing you.
Yeah, like, he was, you know. But again, I just got away with, like, fucking murder almost. You know, like, I just got away with this shit, and I won exclusive custody. You know, so that again went to my head. You know, and I was a flipping mess. You know, I really was a mess. And it's funny because my daughter heard me tell that story a couple of years ago on one of my first podcast interviews. And, you know, she said to me, oh, so I was a mistake. I said, you weren't a mistake. You just weren't planned. You are the greatest achievement of my life and the greatest gift and my greatest blessing, except it took me 10 years to show you. So now when we get back to, you had asked me the question of, you know, what in lead up to, you know, how was April 22nd, 2017, the day of all days, finally, after 28 years of this lifestyle I was leading. You know, there were so many things in lead up to that day. That November, like, you know, as much as I'm high ranking, making the big bucks, very high profile position, you know, like I said, those mistakes were starting to be made at work, you know. I always had a great salary, nothing to show for it. You know, that November 2016, I had a bailiff come to my door in the morning. I wasn't going to work hardly anymore. You know, paid vacation, paid sick leave. But there's a bailiff that came to my door, and I was right freaking tweaking. And at 9 o'clock in the morning, and apparently when you don't pay your mortgage for 7 months, the bank wants their money, or they want their property back. So I was presented with a notice of foreclosure on my condo. Right there, I stopped dead. I said, what the fuck are you doing with your life, Alex? Like, you almost have you and your daughter living out of your car. You work for a deputy head in the government in Canada. You make an amazing salary, and you have nothing to show for it, that you're about to lose your condo. Like, this is the point it's getting to, like, near homelessness, you know? The intent was there, the will, and that whole surrendering bit and all that stuff I didn't know about yet. But, you know, I had met a young lady. I had met a young lady in active addiction that year, and she had to commit herself and go to detox and rehab and the whole bit. And she was in a fellowship at the time. She was about 3 months in, and you know, I'd already seen her life getting better and stuff. I actually called her, you know, I always remained in contact with her, even after, you know, and even though I was still hanging out with our crowd and stuff. And, you know, so for 28 days, like I guess you could say, and I won't call it, you know, I don't call it a relapse because that I never wanted recovery. I didn't even know what it was, you know, like I wasn't stopped. Like I was just stopping because I just needed to get the money for my condo, and like, you know, and I found it. I managed borrowing money and paying off my debt. And then,
Of course, right? Because that's what we do. We
yes,
manipulate.
we're very resourceful people. Funny enough, with my
Very.
ex, who was a coke dealer, and so yeah, so you know, so I stayed clean for 28 days, and it's funny because I went with her to a to the fellowship's masquerade ball for that New Year's Eve. And it's really funny, like how befitting and what an analogy, because it was a masquerade ball. I was the only one not wearing a mask, but I was the only one still wearing a mask because I got high 2 hours before that shit. And when the countdown ended, like you couldn't get me out of there fast enough.
That's misery.
But you know, we say, right, all it takes is that little mustard seed to be planted, right?
Oh,
Because I'll tell you what,
you're preaching to the converted.
I went on my last rampage, hurrah, you name it, whatever you want to call it, my last run. From that point on, that winter was absolute insanity. You know, I always think back to it like, you know, when we create our own insanity, how insane is it to create your own insanity, misery, demise, and absolute ruin, you know? I was getting in another codependent relationship with a much, much younger gentleman. There's just so many things that happened. And then there was the weekend before April 22nd, 2017, like my dealers weren't even coming to my house anymore, right? Like they were telling me to get off the street. They wouldn't even meet me on the street. So when your dealers have cause for concern for you, there's definitely a freaking problem.
Yes.
You know, right there.
Someone's telling you something. Yeah. Someone is telling you something when your dealers bail on you.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said somebody was telling me something here, and I'm looking for comments, and I'm like,
no, I was adding to the conversation, adding a little bit of fuel to the fire. It's evident that somebody's trying to tell you something when your dealers say, sorry, no coke, no speed, nothing. Cheers. Yeah. Off you go.
Yeah, get off the street, Alex. Like, get off the street. Stop driving. What are you doing? Like, go home to your daughter. But yeah, so, you know, that weekend before, in an act of complete desperation, I went across town and picked up off of somebody I totally didn't know, had never picked up from, had never seen before. I can't even tell you what his name is today, you know, and I could tell you what, for doing cocaine for that long in my life, whatever I put up my nose that day was definitely not cocaine. And in a drug-induced psychosis, I thought the only way I would ever get down from that high was to kill myself. Luckily enough, again, I'm here to tell the tale. I got talked out of it. I stayed on the phone with somebody for 24 hours, you know. But all these things started happening, you know. And at work, I had I was really starting to fuck up bad at work, and I wouldn't know how bad until I was at least 1 month into recovery when that happened. But you know, as much as I thought I was invincible, everything catches up to you at some point, you know. And finally, just on April 22nd, 2017, I can tell you I probably stepped 1, 2, and 3'd myself before I even knew what step 1, 2, or 3 were, or the 12 steps were. There was definitely a power greater than myself in that room that morning for me to finally make admonition to self and tell myself, like, you're not shit for shit, Alex. You're just a junkie and an alcoholic, and you need help, and you need it now. You know, that life I was living no longer served a purpose. That woman I was that day completely ceased to exist. You know, my daughter was going to be 10 years old that August, and this was in April. And I was like, Alex, like, you started living and leading this kind of life at her age. Who are you? Like, you need to step up to the plate and be a fucking parent and be a mother and be a role model and start walking the walk and talking the talk, you know? Be a parent, because this is what you're doing to yourself. And yeah, it's not fair to you, but it's not fair to her at all. She didn't ask for this, and the things that she had to bear witness to. And, I thought, again, because, like I said, I always looked so good on paper and so good from the outside,
Yeah.
but thinking back on it, I thought I was the best mother because she was always in the, competitive synchronized swimming, competitive soccer, and I was a deplorable fucking mother. Like, the shit she had to bear witness to and the things she had to endure, and she was taking care of me a lot of the time, So that
I can
that
well
was
imagine.
a big, in my vivid memory of that morning, that was a huge, at that point. And I was just like, I give up. Like, I cannot live like this anymore. I am so done. That gift of desperation was there. I was completely defeated. I was done. And, and then get down on my knees and surrender that way, like, I just know there was a power greater than myself in that room for me to call my girlfriend from 4 or 5 months prior, pick up the phone and say, I need your help and I need it now. Like, and had it not been for her walking me through the doors of the rooms that day, I probably wouldn't be here today. I always say she's an angel put on my path. There was a reason she was put on my path in active addiction, and we partied so hard together. There's definitely a reason, and it just took that seed. I knew who to reach out to, as much as I didn't know about any fucking program at the time, or, but had she not held my hand and walked me through those doors, but from that moment onward, there was no turning back, and
Yeah.
thank God.
But your recovery also took a brand new spin in that you got all your baggage cleaned out, but then you took up competitive bodybuilding.
No, so actually it all happened at the same time.
Oh, it did?
So yeah,
Wow.
so coming into recovery, that April 22nd, 2017 was my foray into the rooms. But I had read 3 weeks into recovery, I had read John C. Maxwell's quote, change something you do daily, change your life. Your success lies in your daily routine. So this 3 weeks into it, I started, overhauling completely. I mean, drugging and drinking had been my lifestyle for so long. So I completely overhauled my daily routine and, started incorporating, seeing the benefits of, I was so unhealthy on every level, and just starting, I had already started to do my morning, meditation and prayer and stuff that the program had showed me in just that short little time.
Yeah.
But I started, I was 225 pounds when I walked into the rooms.
Wow.
As much as I say, I didn't only rid myself of toxic people, places, and things. I rid myself of all toxicity. So when I adopted a clean living, I adopted clean eating as well, because I could tell you what, I was so malnourished.
Wow.
Because those 3, 4, 5-day benders I was on, come day 5, 6, when I thought, okay, maybe it is time to put a bit of food in my body and maybe get an hour or 2 sleep in so I can restart the whole fucking party cycle. Sorry, did you guys hear that? My daughter's trying to call me. So I hung up on her. Okay, and so that whole, but I would literally binge eat in that 2-hour span. I would be putting everything I was putting in my body, from the cocaine to the alcohol, was toxicity. I was wolfing down 2, 3 pizzas to myself. I don't know if you guys know what that poutine is, but anyways, a Quebec delicacy, French fries, cheese curds, and gravy, and I could eat like a ton of that. The pop, the chips, because I wasn't good enough to cook, to do any good cooking for myself. Like, like I was too lazy at that point. But so I was just no shit. I lived a waste case life. Everything I consumed, including the people I was surrounding with myself, were fucking garbage and junk, you know? It was
Yeah.
pure
Right.
toxicity. Everything that I was consuming was toxic. So I really I really went on my nutrition. I started noticing, you know, so as, you know, 3 weeks in, as much as, you know, I haven't had cocaine and like the booger sugar in like over 4.5 years, you know, I haven't had so much as refined sugar. Like, you know, refined refined sugar, refined sugar is absolutely a drug to me, you know. So I eat as whole and as natural and as close to the source as I can, not
Wow.
processed. I have not had any refined sugar in my body in over 4.5. That probably would set me off. Um,
Whoa. That's
so
amazing.
I adopted a clean eating, and I'm very anal about clean eating. Like, you know,
Oh, she
I
is.
see some
Trust
other
me.
people. I see some other people on there, but that's you know, I had to catch myself in that. So I was you know, my addict brain can still go in these other directions, you know, and there is such a thing as orthorexia. So in my first year of recovery, I was suffering orthorexia. I had an unhealthy obsession with healthy eating. And
Oh
I'll tell
my.
you what, like I was just about to say, like I was judging other people's plates and the food they were consuming. And you're sitting there saying you're a clean eater, but I could tell you what, those freaking protein keto Cheerios that you're eating right now have fucking refined sugar in it. You ain't clean whatsoever. You
Right.
know, like I was very anal about it, and I lost 100 pounds very, very, very quickly. People were
Whoa.
starting to get concerned about me. I think I had, 15 months later, I was on to my first competitive bodybuilding stage. You know, just 15 months prior, I was at 225 pounds. But just noticing too, you know, the benefits of exercise, and I couldn't even do 2 minutes of cardio at the time.
Mm-hmm.
um you know, so I started with yoga, and really I'll attribute my first 40 pounds lost definitely to the fact that whiskey was out of my daily diet.
Yeah.
There's so much sugar in that.
Yeah.
but like but you know, and then just noticing the benefits of connecting my breath, my mind, my body, my soul, and starting to see
It's
the
all
synergies,
interconnected.
and getting them to work, you know, interactive, and like, you know, they're at interplay all day long. And you know, recovery is absolutely coming back to a harmonious, balanced, and aligned state of self. So you
Mm-hmm.
know, starting to really find that harmony within and doing the inner
Right.
work, you
Yeah.
know. So
Yeah.
for me, I always say I work a trifecta program. Nutrition and fitness have proven viable approaches to my recovery, complemented by my 12-step program. Because
Mm-hmm.
honestly, at the end of the day, like I have a three-pronged dis-ease, and I always put the hyphen mark in dis-ease. I have a dis-ease of self, in, with, of, and by myself. Um, but I have a mental obsession, a physical compulsion, and a spiritual malady. I have to attack those three on the daily. So I cannot get away from not doing mental exercise every day, physical exercise every day, and spiritual exercise every day. So when
Yeah.
we say, you know,
Wow.
my daily reprieve is contingent upon my spiritual maintenance, for me, it's
Mm-hmm.
not just contingent upon my spiritual maintenance. It's contingent upon my spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical maintenance on the day, on a daily basis. You know, it's my entire well-being. You
Right.
know, it's not
Right. Of course.
the goal is not to be clean and or sober. The goal is to love ourselves enough to live addiction-free lives, right? And it's not about abstinence, it's about improving our quality of life, but also our health and our wellness, right? It's about our betterment
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
and bettering
Absolutely.
ourselves. So it's my entire well-being. So I can't escape not, you know, not doing the work on all levels every day.
Yeah.
Danny, you wanted to ask something before I rudely interrupted you.
Oh hell, I'll never remember. I don't have that many brain cells anymore, Chris.
I
You
didn't
know,
imply that.
when I first got sober, I'm over 15 years now. I would train every day, running around the block with the plastic suits on, the tires around my waist, and then, now I'm dealing with all these health problems because of probably some of the, the past. And in fact, I went to see a ear, nose, and throat guy last week, and he said, "Your ears are ringing because you got hit in the face on your right side." And I said, was thinking, oh my God, I did. Someone bashed me. I saw stars. I remember it. It was, of course, one of my using friends. And, we do so much damage to our body. And like the challenges that are happening now where, I can't even get back to the yoga. That was something I would just force myself to do every morning because I actually really did like it, but I'm just having such a hard time. I'm struggling so hard to get back because I have arthritis of the spine, which really sucks. But when you
Okay.
get, when your pieces, when you start, like you were talking about, missing some of the pieces, you start getting a little off track and you're not as balanced. And so,
Mm-hmm.
this week actually I've been really and it's just been so natural for me to be super grateful lately, and it's just every night just thinking about how grateful I am. And it's subtle, you have everything kind of takes time, and you go through all these waves in your sobriety. And where you're
Mm-hmm.
at right now is such a incredible time and so exciting. So what is this thing that you're
But
doing
I'll
in
tell you
Canada?
what, like, okay, and I'll get into that, but I'll tell you, I
Sure.
just want to hit on that, and our work is never done. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm coming into my 5 years, but at a 2 year point in my recovery, at my 4 year point, like I've really had to go back to like last winter, I went into a deep depressive state, and I really
Mm,
had to start looking deep within myself again. And it's funny because Chris was mentioning that I am a competitive bodybuilder and I'm a decorated competitive bodybuilder today.
wow.
Um, but how I approach one thing is how I approach everything. And those 12 spiritual principles are not only, practiced in all my affairs, but across all facets of my life. So I was
Hmm.
going to go. I was going for my pro card in December. Unfortunately, I didn't even place at all the way I thought I would. But that launched me into last winter when I was in my deep depressive state. Like something had to give. Our work is never done. Recovery is an ongoing, daily, God willing, lifelong process.
Yeah.
I never use the term. I never use the term recovered. I don't know how one can say that they're recovered. When are you going to be recovered?
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
lifelong.
right.
It
You ain't
lulls
going
you
to be
into a
me
sort of a
explaining that.
You're
complacency.
recovering,
Yeah.
and
Present
and
continuous, I agree.
I
Mhm.
was really in a bad place, and I had to go back to basics.
Yeah.
So I
That's the
there
key.
went my whole. I'm not just going for a pro card. Like, who's the Alex that I'm going to be conveying on that stage? I got to
Mm,
go profound again to grow pro. So new sponsors, started doing formal round of step work again. This
good
self
for you.
discovery thing is
Have
an
you heard this girl's
everyday
talent for
thing.
poetry? Throughout the
Mental
way that
my
she speaks, Danny. Have you heard she's a poet?
I'm
She
not a
is.
poet per se, but
Are you
Oh, shush
a
you.
freestyle
I'm a
rapper?
writer. I'm a writer,
Awesome.
and
You got a
and
lot of good knowledge.
and getting a mindset transformational coach, because honestly, I had to do a lot of inner
That's right.
child work and go to my subconscious mind, because as much as I thought there were things that were healed 2 years ago when I came into the rooms, I thought I forgave my dad. Oh,
There's
no, apparently I needed to go check in with my inner child a little bit more on that one,
right.
and
There's so much
recognizing
more to
why I
be
was
revealed.
every
Yeah.
day, this is an everyday process.
Yeah.
So yeah, so like that's something that I really appreciate that you said, that our work is never done. We're forever in this, if we're in this, right? And that's
Hmm.
the kind of person I
Amen.
am. All in or nothing at all. Half measures avail me nothing. um a lot of people say I'm intense, but I just chase my recovery like I chased my next fix and high, by any means and any lengths necessary, and that has to be my top priority today, for everything that I've come so hard to work for, that peace and that freedom and that serenity. for me and my daughter's quality of life today, you know,
Yeah.
to everything that I love, including my very self, that shit can never come last again to me in my life.
Yes.
Well, people will obviously say you're intense, but they will always assume something that they themselves will never understand. Not once in our friendship passe have I ever seen you as intense. I've always seen you as passionate and humble. And if people can't see that, they can go take a long walk off a short pier. I
It,
second with
So
Daniela.
silly.
How much did how long did it take for you to get Sober Canada started? Sober Active Canada, excuse me.
So that was actually so luckily enough, you know, I've always been a networker and a very resourceful person. So for me, it came very naturally to jump on Instagram. I've had my Instagram account since very early on. I think I was 30 days in, or maybe even less, you know, and I started connecting with people because, you know, I was getting into the fitness thing again. And
Yeah.
so I started connecting with people like one rep at a time, Marv out in San Diego, and there was Tom Shanahan out in New York, the author of Spiritual Adrenaline, a lifestyle plan to nourish and strengthen your recovery. You know, besides the big book and the basic text, that's the only other book I've read in my last 5 years, you know, through and through. It's my daily Bible today, you know, nourishing and
Okay.
strengthening our recovery. Um, and and yeah, but he also runs, you know, Sober Active New York City, and a lot of people in the recovery and fitness. You know, there's huge influences in the United States, like rock recovery, temperance training, the Phoenix. You know, with these recovery based gyms, or really the
Wow.
promotion of fitness and recovery, right? And let's face it, like good physical health promotes good mental health, and good mental health promotes good physical health. You know,
I was waiting for that poetry of yours because that's what you told me the last time when you gave me some fitness tips.
It's
yeah.
it's written all over you. I mean, you're really glowing, and everything
Uh,
about you
Isn't
is
she?
you're an
even if I'm at
sweetie.
like
You really are.
even if I'm at the unhealthiest, I feel, oh my gosh, this COVID shit, I
Babe,
can't
you're
believe.
gorgeous.
But it could be a lot worse. It could be a lot
I know
worse.
you don't feel great.
If
Well,
I
tell
was
us.
still in active addiction, I'm sure this shit would be a lot worse right now.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, so Sober Active Canada. So, you know, and then even my competition coach, you know, Carly Young, out in Boise, Idaho, I met her as a sober sister first and foremost.
Like
And, you know, just
awesome.
looking up to these positive, finally in my life, you know, I never really had any real friends to begin with, but female
Yeah.
connections and friends, you know, and just sort of starting to surround myself with these positive influences, and very motivating and encouraging, and, you know, people that actually want my that have my best interests at heart, and who I can look up
Yeah.
to, and like role models, you know. And
Hmm.
um so Carly actually became my competition coach later on. You know, she was a successful gym owner in Boise, 11 years sober. She's like my one of my greatest friends today, my confidant, but she's my competition coach. That's how I got into the bodybuilding.
Mm.
But so Sober Active Canada, you know, is a national nonprofit recovery-based community for those addicted to bettering themselves. So, you know, fostering
Mm.
health, hope, and healing, and you know, just a community of like-minded individuals. And I think, again, it's going what I like to call the sober grind, right? Highlighting and featuring people's experience, strength, and hope that have a good
Yeah.
sober grind, or their routine down packed, you know, that are doing the mental exercise, the physical exercise, and the
Yeah.
spiritual exercise on a daily basis. And amazing Canadians doing amazing things in the community, you know. So
Aren't they?
there were a lot of these recovery based gyms out in the States, and internationally, but there was nothing in Canada. So it had
Mm.
always been an
Right.
idea of mine, because I was talking with my good friend Tom, you know, and he was like, I think you should start something in Canada. And my dream goal is to open Canada's first recovery based gym. But this is my ultimate service work. And, you know, COVID hit. It was something that I had on the back burner for quite a while. COVID hit, and it was now or never, now is the time to bring it to the, like, bring a community, provide those resources that I had so early on in my recovery, create a community where people could connect, online, and people were sitting at home idling with isolation. That first wave, we were all in lockdown. Everything completely shut down. Meeting rooms were no longer happening, so I started doing, we could at least go into a park and stuff. So I started doing, virtual and live events where I would actually do, start off with 5 minutes, 2 minutes guided meditation, go into like a 10-20 minute light stretching beginner yoga class, and then followed by a 12-step style format meeting or healing circle, but all around, the benefits of fitness in recovery, self-care in recovery. Self-care is an important phase of recovery, right? Again, let's go back to, it's about loving ourselves enough to live addiction or alcohol-free lives, where drugs or alcohol no longer serve a purpose in our lives, doing that inside work. And I'll go back to it, the self-care is not just about chocolates and bubble bath. Some days, yes, it can be that, but it's about mental self-care, physical self-care, social self-care, like we're doing right now, right? That connection piece, spiritual self-care, self-care, and practical self-care, right? Those 6 elements of self-care. In that, so I had lost my job in the federal government 1 month into my recovery, and it could have possibly been the best thing that happened to me. Yes, for one split second, because I came out of total left field. But like I said, right, I was only invincible for so long before everything caught up to me, and I had been using taxpayer funds to fund my habits by the end, and that caught up to me. So as much as I was 1 month into recovery and starting to do very well again at work, I was totally caught off guard. I was summoned into the big boss's office, and within 15 minutes, I was being escorted out of the building. Don't think the thought didn't cross my mind to take my severance package and run with it, like, because I was like, I could go get so blasted right now, but this is also an opportunity. This is a blessing in disguise. With one bad, a bad ending is just a disguise for a great beginning. And it allowed me, I had been employed for 18 years, in the government, 18 years of pensionable service. And that was working around the clock. Like, I had never had time for myself and to work on myself, free time on my hands. So I started going to meetings every day, doing the exercise every day. I had the luxury of that, to go downtown on myself. That's what I had to do. And in that, because of my own transformation and how I had become totally addicted to bettering myself, I went and got my health coaching certification, right? So, and lifestyle coaching certification. So that's how
I was just going to ask you, are you a coach? Because you should be.
Yeah. So, but I only work with recovering addicts and alcoholics so we can reach our optimal health and wellness goals to live lives unaddicted, right? So that's my whole premise. So Sober Active Canada is absolutely my baby. But it's my ultimate service work. I'm very active in my fellowship as well, but that is my ultimate service work. So I do feature, what I like to call recovery MVPs. So stellar people in the Canadian recovery community, doing amazing things, nationwide. Let's get real with the pandemic. It's recovery without borders. I think I have more followers from the States than I do Canadians at this point. And and bringing our events, doing recovery hikes, and just getting people moving and together in that community aspect, right? The opposite of addiction is absolutely connection. Providing an outlet for that, also resource-based information on there.
That's awesome.
That's great stuff. Darling, we're going to bring it to a close because I know that you're sick and you probably want to get back to bed and heal up properly. But I totally second with Danny. You're still glowing. Alex, every time I hear you speak, because you did my show twice. I've heard you speak at when I attended your sober birthday, when Rob got you that chip. And I mean, you just keep growing and growing and growing. You serve as an inspiration to me, and everyone who's going to see or hear this is going to get inspired. Darling, there's so much more for you in this life. And myself and Danny are behind you in spirit, and we wish you nothing but the best. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And I just wanted to say, every week we do giveaways. So Woody, you've been here for the last 2 weeks. Thank you for watching. We appreciate you being here. And if you have any questions, you can always raise your hand and we'll bring you on, or we'll answer your questions. You don't have to come up. So send me your email and I will send you a free shirt. It's info@doingitsober.com. And also, if you are viewing for the first time or listening by podcast, you can go to firesidechat.com/Daniela Park, or Doing It Sober Instagram. And if you're looking for the coolest 12-step gift, you can also go to my store, doingitsober.com.
Do it now.
Thank you for joining us, and I hope you join us every Tuesday at 5 p.m.
God bless, guys. Can't wait to see you.
Have a good
Bye,
night.
everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.